come here. What's he doing? Hi. Hi, puppers.
Where are we going?
Oh man, I don't know, man. I think we're going to the nail.
It is inconvenient. I won't lie. Well, most of the time it's just me and the dog.
We locked the door over there so Corey couldn't get back in.
Oh, can you just crawl across and grab that
You guys
for me?
put your windows up?
Yes, sir. Bum ain't going all, bud.
You guys are, I think we're moving at a good pace. You're hitting those wheels pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The thin wheel, actually, we were talking to Brad and I said something like maybe the fatter wheels would be better, but those things cut through the rocks, which is actually pretty nice.
Honestly, no. There go the boys.
Well, it looks like first. Should we see what? Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let's go.
This might be it might be a good barrier. I mean,
Yeah.
other thing is, are we sleeping on the floor or bringing cots?
You can do whatever you want.
whatever you want, man.
I think I'm gonna bring a sleeping pad just to be lighter. And we talked about the. All right, folks, I don't know if this is recording or not, but we got the camp all set up here with a cracked screen.
Could have came a little bit more that
That's
way.
character.
Keep the
Really?
picture
That's
out.
right. We got a full black screen, and I can see a little bit of the corner.
The wood still is on it.
So we're gonna go to Best Buy after this and see if we can replace this screen, or we're not gonna be able to record any videos here for a little bit. So I'll probably get back to you guys after I go get a new screen at Best Buy, but the camp's all set up and we're ready to go for next weekend. So that's about it. We're about getting picked up here and about to head back down the mountain.
Probably want to seal those windows up before we leave, right?
Danny, in fault. You weren't kidding. When you say you're gonna get wet getting back in these swamps here. We're heading back in this swamp. Corey's gonna try pushing a buck off his bed because he bumped it the other day. We came back in the next morning. He came in the dark, never saw him. So he's gonna try bumping him off his bed to me. I'm gonna set up beyond it. Dan, if this works, all props to you, buddy. Thick swamp, thick wet swamp. So. I tell you what, folks, I can't catch a break here. Walking through this swamp. Corey's, here, I'll tell you what we're doing first. I'm in a really, really thick swamp right now. And that buck that Corey bumped here on this property a couple days ago should be bedded about 75 to 100 yards back this way. When Corey bumped him the first time, he ran this way while I'm walking in here. And 50 yards to my right here, I found a fresh rub, which is a good sign. And then as soon as I got to the bottom of my tree, a doe and a fawn were standing right out here. It was kind of worked off through there. So that's a really, really good sign that the deer were moving through here. It's probably, we waited till it got light and these deer were not on their feet so much anymore. So it's probably, I don't know, I haven't checked the time, but it's probably around 8:30. Right now, 8 o'clock. But the bad news, I'm going to tell you, and I can't catch a break. I'm walking through a swamp and I had my GoPro, like I always have it, right on my strap of my bag. And I fell in. My foot sunk up to my knee in one spot. And I think that's where the GoPro went to. So we're down to GoPro now too. Oh man. Film hunts, they said. It's been tough, man. I've been breaking shit, losing stuff. I don't know what to do here. I guess I just gotta be more careful and start taking care of my stuff a little better, huh? I'm gonna have to start putting lanyards on all my shit and wrapping them in bubble wrap. What are you gonna do? I guess I needed a new one anyways. Alright, well, I'm gonna get all set up here, get these cameras stuck on here, and hopefully Corey pushes this buck right to me. We'll see what happens here. trash back there. Let's go. It's been so dry. So dry. We finally did it. Let's go, baby. All on camera.
Oh, Bud, I'm so proud of you. I knew you smoked him when I thought I heard a crack.
I just absolutely drilled him.
What's that?
I just drilled him.
He's a tank.
No, he's not.
He's not?
I think he's a 5, but the only reason I shot him is because he had a bum leg.
Did he?
Yeah, he has his right side's really nice. He comes out, has a real nice spread, but on the other side, his other side's like messed up, only has 2. He got a big body, and he had a messed up front leg, so I shot him. He's a nice buck, though.
So, since we're doing a little interview here, that couldn't have worked out any more.
Corey, he came out here, swung around. My arrow should be right behind that tree where you're standing right there. It was a full pass through, double long. He's standing there facing this way like he was gonna come here, and then he just stepped beyond that tree right there and gave me a broadside shot. 20 yards.
So, he was about 10 yards from where I jumped him last week. Same area though, same little spot by where we sat. He jumped up, and I almost got a crack at him right there. And I thought he might have been limping, but all I could see was his huge body, and I'm like, that's him right there.
Nice. He's a nice buck. Like that one side's really nice on him. But I saw the bum let. You should have seen him trying to. He couldn't even walk to this shit. Yeah, he was like literally like he would press one down, sink in the mud, and I'm like, I'm shooting him. I'm not. That was so weird. We're recording. What do you think about that arrow, old boy?
I don't think he went far.
It might be what's easiest is when he's swinging all around. You're just trying to find him here because it's gonna be tough finding blood in here. Mm-hmm. I mean, the way that arrow is shaped, I'm sure there's gonna be some. Oh yeah. Just you gotta look on the dry spots because obviously you're not gonna be able to see it in the water unless it's. No. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, we're not gonna need it. We're not gonna need it. It does look like a little high. With an arrow in him like that, and a broken leg. Yeah. Oh, it is. It's caked. What do you got there, Vale? Oh man, what a nice buck.
Yeah, this is an old swamp.
Wow.
Look at that messed up side there.
Get him up. Let's take a look at him. Oh, let's go.
That's a cool buck.
That is awesome. Look at the body on him. Oh, look at that. He's gnarly. Look at that.
That's a gnarly buck right there. He's old too.
Look at that. He's got a noggin on him. Technically a 9 point. He didn't go anywhere, huh?
Nope.
Here, let's get this out of the way. What a nice buck, Bill.
Perfect shot.
You smoked him.
Perfect shot.
He's got a body on him. Holy moly. Let's go. Wind bump success, baby.
I had to, I couldn't let this guy go. We have bigger bucks on camera, but I couldn't let him go the way he was hobbling through the swamp like that. It just...
Boy, I don't know. I would have shot that buck any day of the week. That's a nice deer, man. That's a great, great deer.
I couldn't let him go hobbling like that. I'd love to go after some of those bigger bucks, but you owe the deer a little due diligence when you hunt them as much as we do.
What a beauty. What a beauty.
Old bump and dump swamp buck. That's an awesome side right there.
That is so cool. He's got a club.
I thought it was a spike horn.
He's got kickers. He's got character. Let me get some zoom on this here. Oh, I'm so proud of you. Good shooting.
That's awesome.
That feels good, huh?
After the season we've been having, yeah, that feels real good.
We have been on the struggle bus, to say the least. And we knew that the only way we were going to put a deer on the ground is to make things happen ourselves, because they just flat out were not happening on their own. So we came back in here today. I had seen this buck and bumped this buck a week ago. Bailey and I came in for a morning setup, tried killing him. We think he came in the dark. Did not get a crack at him, unfortunately. But I kind of figured he'd still be in this area, so we let it cool off. Today, Bailey accessed the property from the opposite way that I did. Came in with the wind in his face, found the perfect tree in the perfect setup. He knew exactly where to go. I then came in from the other side of the property, had a pretty good idea where he'd be bedded, and it just worked out flawlessly. He was bedded right where he was when I had jumped him, where he was the last week when I jumped him. I almost got a crack at him from the ground. He ended up working off, and I just had a feeling he was going right to where Bailey was, and he just about came in on the string. And you'll see that in the video. Bailey did an awesome job, got it all on film, and he made an absolutely perfect shot. I mean, this is
What'd he go?
This is what we live
What'd he go,
with.
40 yards?
Maybe 40. I mean, if that. We didn't even blood trail because we heard him crash.
What an awesome little rat.
Look at the head on him.
He's an old deer.
That's a beautiful deer. Pull his teeth up for a second. I just want to take a look. Let's get him cleaned up here. Here, oh, you good boy.
How do they look?
Hard to tell. Not real sure. What a beauty, though.
They don't look.
I wonder. I'm guessing this injury. So, which shoulder was he limping on?
The other one, not this one. I think the other one.
You want to get him out of the water and roll him there? We'll take a look. So I'm guessing from the looks, if his injury is on the left side and his left antler's messed up, this is an injury from the year prior.
Yeah. That's a nice buck.
That's a great buck. What a nice deer. Looks like he broke his brow tine maybe during the summer or just never grew it. This is sweet.
Look at these little.
Look, that is sweet. I don't know how to get that to focus in there. Give you the... I'll get him rolled over for you.
Hang on 1 second. 1 second.
Let me do this here quick. Here, let me clean him up. Look at that. That's an awesome rack. That is awesome. Oh, you smoked him.
It's just, he just has a cool little rack on him.
I am so
that's,
tickled pink for you with this buck.
That's just a big
That's just a
buck.
big, like Bailey was just saying, for around here, this is such a typical buck. Great body on him, big hoof, big old noggin, big neck. Like, I'm not saying he's super old because obviously we don't know, but just an all-around good deer with a screwed up rack. We deal with this all the time around here. We have a lot of bucks that are under 100 inches that we would shoot any day of the week. Especially this one because he has all this character and he's just an absolute slob. We are so happy about this. What do you say?
I don't know what to say. The struggle we've had. Oh, it feels good.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say. It feels real good, especially the rack's besides the points. He's a big deer. Like he's
a tank. Yeah.
I'm thankful I made a good shot on him. That's for sure.
Perfect shot.
I've bucked before, I haven't, so it feels good to do that.
That's why you practice all summer, right?
Mm-hmm. So you put in the work all summer long. Literally every single day we were out there shooting. Every day.
Every day we've been grinding, shooting, scouting, hiking, trail camera this, trail camera that. It's been nonstop. So this is super rewarding. And you get to go up north now with a clean slate. The pressure's off.
I'm going to be filming for the next 2 weeks. This feels good.
Yeah.
Feels good. I had such a good feeling after I watched those does, he was walking right where those does. I watched those does come in that I bumped, and I'm like, I have to set up right there because, I mean, it would just make sense. And there was a rub 50 yards behind me.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, and then he died with a cluster of rubs.
Yeah,
right
no,
here.
that's a good point. When we kind of circled around off the blood trail here to get to where we thought he was, because actually I was about 150 yards from where Bailey had shot him, and I could hear him crash. I mean, it was a no-doubter he was down. However, tracking in a swamp like this, I mean, you guys can see it's a gnarly mess out here. There was no way we were going to pick up blood anytime soon. So being confident in Bailey's shot and knowing that he went down, we decided to loop around, and we ended up walking right up on him. But he died right here in what I would assume is his staging area or core area. I mean, it's loaded with rubs. We passed 4 or 5 really fresh ones right on the way in.
Another one right there.
Yeah, and then it looks like there's another one over here.
Well,
I tell you what, the boys are going to have to celebrate tonight.
I would say so.
And I think the beauty of this is it's not even 9 o'clock yet, is it?
We still have
9:21.
We still have another property to go bump and dump on.
Yeah, so not to take away from this, but we have a slammer that I kicked out of his bed the other day that we're going to try to pull the same thing off midday. Don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to try. So we're probably going to work on getting this guy out of here, cleaned up and out of here now.
In the video, I'll pull up a map and kind of draw on the map how this all worked out, so you guys can see kind of what we did here. So if you guys ever wanted to use this tactic, it's just we literally have been talking about this for a week because we knew this is what we had to do. We couldn't find them. They haven't been moving far because there's so many acorns and
Beech nuts.
So they haven't been moving far. They've been
That and all the crop fields are getting picked right now.
Exactly. So they haven't been moving much, and Corey and I have said the only way we're going to kill a buck right now is if we do a bump and dump. Exactly what happened today. Corey went back where he kicked him out a couple days ago, scooted him right out of his bed, and came to a beeline to me, 20-yard broadside shot.
It was perfect.
It doesn't work out any much better than that. It's awesome.
This is why, though, you keep grinding when you're struggling. You don't stop going. You get out of bed in the morning. And I'll be honest, we were a little lazy today. We didn't want to get out of bed. We didn't want to get out of the truck.
I slept through my alarm.
Bailey slept through his alarm, which that's usual. We ended up sipping our coffee and waiting to get in here, actually, because we saw quite a few deer out and about right around first light. They're out feeding in the hay fields and whatnot, so we figured we'd give them some time to settle down. But to get back to the main point, just keep grinding. They're out here for the taking. Get aggressive. Don't be afraid to bump deer. Don't be afraid to get in on them because it does pay off, as you can see.
Shout out to Dan Infalt and THP boys because they've taught us a lot about this.
Oh, yeah.
Just watching their videos.
I mean, just like a ton of other people, we idolize those kind of guys because of, you know, the type of people they are, the information they push, and the success that they've had. We've learned a ton from them. Another one, Andre Diakisto, he kind of, I think, coined the whole bump and dump term, and then other guys have kind of built off of it.
It works.
It works. It works, needless to say.
All right, well, we're going to get this deer out of here.
Yep.
Pick up kind of somewhere in an open area, I would assume. Kind of get some good pictures of this guy. I want to get some pictures in this swamp with him.
For sure,
So,
for sure.
We'll
All right, guys.
in a little bit. I know. Funny how it keeps it. No, I can't see what the lights are.
We'll just take the highest number.
Yeah, we'll take the highest one. 158.9.
Look at that.
Good.
That's a good one.
Perfect. All right, folks. So we're gonna elaborate on this little post-hunt breakdown here. So, I mean, I guess you could take it from where it all started. All right, so this early October has been
we've said it, we sound like we're beating a dead horse, but it's been so slow. I mean, we're not even hardly seeing does and having encounters to where we could possibly even get a shot off. So I believe it was like I want to say it was last Monday or Tuesday. One of the permission farms that we have locally, it's always loaded with deer and it's always loaded with good bucks, but we can never really pin down exactly where they are. So not knowing where they're bedded, not knowing where they're feeding exactly, I was like, you know what, I'm going to take the day. I got out of work at about 3 o'clock. I'm going to take the rest of the afternoon, and I'm just going to scout around and hopefully kick one out of its bed to give us an opportunity to get back in the next morning.
All right, guys, we're in the middle of telling that story there on the camera, and the card is full on the camera, so we're going to finish it on the phone here. We'll probably just pick up where you left off because I'll just edit the video in.
Okay, so yeah, that buck was bedded right on a transition from a thick alder swamp to a standing cornfield and then a little hardwood plateau type deal. I guess an oak flat. Anyways, he was bedded with another little buck. I kicked them out. They didn't really know what was going on. I watched where they went. I got a really good look at his exit, and I was pretty confident that the next morning, which would have been last Tuesday, we could get in there and hopefully catch him either coming back into his bed or get a crack at him as he's in his bed already. So Bailey came with me. He was filming. I was a shooter. I had already had a stand set up, ready to go. We got set up probably, 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock. It was really early.
We had about an hour sit time in the dark.
Yeah, it was early. And probably about a half hour, 45 minutes in, we heard sloshing in the swamp, and I believe it was that buck that he ended up shooting today coming back through. Not quite sure where he bedded. It almost looked like he went back into the standing corn, or he could have walked up towards that oak flat. I don't really know. Needless to say, we never got a look at him, and we never got a crack at him.
No.
But I was pretty confident he was going to come back to that area, and I think Bailey was on the same page.
Yeah. He was comfortable.
He was comfortable. Definitely. He wasn't spooked. He never blew. He never busted out. And we didn't really know why at the time, but it was just the fact.
And not to interrupt you, but in situations like this, don't get discouraged when you bump a buck, because in their mind, when you bump a buck like that and they get out of there safely and you don't spook them too bad, like in this scenario, they feel confident in their bedding area. They feel confident that they can escape there without any harm, like he did the day Corey bumped them.
100%. And I'm just as guilty as anybody else, and I can tell you in years past, it used to frustrate me to no end when I bumped deer or pushed deer around, and I was like, oh no, the hunt's ruined, or I can't go back to the spot. And it's honestly quite the opposite, and that's been confirmed time and time again over the last few years of us doing it, whether it be accidentally or purposefully. These deer do come back because they are confident in their setups.
Yeah, and especially if you go watch like the big names on YouTube, like you watch THP or Dan Fall or
do some research on Andre Diaquisto. He coined this whole bump and dump tactic. I mean, he's been doing it for a long time, and he shot world-class deer doing it.
And that's really who we picked it up from, is watching those guys, and this is our first successful one doing it.
Yep.
But it worked out to a T. So
yep. So to get back to how this all came into place. So since last Tuesday or whatever it was, where we hunted in the morning, we have not had hardly any encounters. Been finding a ton of sign, and we've been in good areas. It's just with this warm weather and whatever other reasons it may be, I think a lot of the movement's been at night. So we kind of had enough, and Bailey and I hunted together last night with no luck. So we're like, you know what? If nothing's happening, we're gonna make something happen.
Mm-hmm.
So we got looking at the maps, we got talking, and we were like, let's go back and try to pull off this bump and dump in daylight on this buck that we knew was bedded on this transition zone. So, excuse me. So the way it kind of sets up is, he knew a kid that his family owns some property.
Yeah, shout out to them. You know who you are. Thank you so much for letting us go on your property. And
I think you know why we're not going to mention names.
Yeah, we're not going to mention names. But thank you very much to you guys, seriously.
Yes,
I mean, we wouldn't be able to kill that buck without that permission, so that was awesome.
access was perfect. So we actually had a westerly wind today, which is pretty abnormal. We usually have a lot of easterly winds, southerly winds, whatever. But it was minimal anyways. Thermals were playing more of a factor. So Bailey was able to access, in theory, with the wind in his face and thermals dropping down into the swamp. I don't know if you checked your wind.
I checked my wind. It was a perfect wind blowing directly back the way I walked in. So it was blowing in my face the whole time I was walking into the swamp, which is why when I went to go set up in the tree, the reason I set up in the tree I did was because I had walked in and not 20 yards from that tree, 2 does were passing through right there, and they couldn't smell me because I had a perfect wind, and they just kind of looked around and kind of hopped off. So I figured, okay, well, the does are walking that way. If Corey is to bump this buck out of here, I'm gonna imagine he's most likely gonna take the route that those does did, and he did that exactly.
Yeah,
that's exactly what he did.
Call. And this will all make sense too. Bailey, I think, is going to draw up a map when he puts the video out to kind of show the layout of how this all unfolded. But basically, I waited till Bailey was set up. We talked on the phone, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm almost set up, whatever." So our timing was pretty much perfect with this. I ended up accessing from the east side of the property, walking towards the west, and Bailey was set up on the west side of the property. I ended up walking along the edge of this standing cornfield, which was on the opposite side of where the buck was bedded, just to get around to the point, because they kind of draw a picture for you. The cornfield came to a point on the very northerly tip of it, and I knew as soon as I got around that, at any point, this buck was apt to jump up out of his bed. So at about 8:45, somewhere in that time frame, I walked the edge, got to that point, and I no sooner came around the corner of the point of the cornfield, and that buck jumped up right out of his bed where I jumped him the week prior. I almost got a crack at him on the ground. I ended up drawing down on him. I had him about 30 yards, but it would not have been a clean shot, and it was too far for what I wanted, or for what I would like to shoot.
Right.
So I watched him take like 2 bounds, and he again really had no idea what was going on. His tail was initially in the air, and then after he kind of scanned the area and sniffed a little bit, he put his tail down and started working towards Bailey, and I'll let him take over from here.
And so when Corey bumped him, I heard him get up out of his bed, and I heard him start crashing. He took a couple hops, couple bounds, and I heard him, and next thing I know, I just see his big head coming through the swamp, and I immediately hit the record button on my camera, and he was not spooked like almost at all. He actually ended up feeding on some of the browse in the swamp there, and he just worked his way in. He was heading kind of away from me, and all of a sudden turned right down the trail that those does came down like I thought he would, and he came within 20 yards, as you guys saw in the videos, and turned broadside, and I double lunged him right there, and he didn't go 40 yards. So I mean,
Didn't go 20.
Didn't yeah, almost.
No, he went probably 30, 40 yards.
He went 30 or 40 yards, and where he died, I literally told Corey when we were walking through, we saw like a cluster of like 3 or 4 rubs, and I said, this is where he died, somewhere right here. He was probably heading back to another bed.
There's no doubt, and granted, he doesn't have the biggest rack in the world. I mean, that's pretty obvious.
No.
But this buck was running this swamp in this little area. I mean, he had this place absolutely shredded.
Yeah, and a big part of why I shot him also is because I couldn't, as a hunter, I couldn't watch that deer limp through the swamp like that. I mean, he might have been living like that for a while, we think, so we think he got hit by a car, but I could not watch him walk through the swamp like that. So I'm super happy about it. I'm super happy with that buck, especially for the area where we hunt. Yeah, we have some big ones on camera here for sure, but sometimes it's not about that all the time. And I couldn't be happier with shooting this buck with my bow.
He's a dandy. He's an absolute. What a time we had getting him out of there, though. Holy moly!
It was interesting getting him out of there. Yeah. Corey did most of pulling, honestly. So
it was a swamp where you sunk up to your knees pretty much every step you took.
Yeah, I lost my GoPro in there somewhere because of that. So
I lost a whole quiver of arrows with broadheads.
Yeah. We knew something had to give, and it did. So I think that about wraps it up.
for what happened, but time to go get them cut up.
Time to go get them cut up. And
We would like to cut them up ourselves, and we have the space to do it. But being as warm as it is,
we want to get them to a
I
butcher
don't feel
with a
comfortable
freezer.
doing it. It's, it's just better to get them to a butcher right now and get them cooled down.
And we weighed him. I don't know if you guys. I think I filmed that. Yeah, I filmed that. He 158 pounds. He ended up weighing, which is. I mean, that's a good buck. That's a solid
really good
buck.
buck around here.
We honestly think that he's probably around 3 years old. I would assume.
I would assume too. I mean, he just has that look to him, and I guess it's easy to say that without actually knowing, but he definitely looks like an older buck to me. I mean, his head is shaped much differently than most 2.5-year-old bucks and 3.5-year-old.
And he's got a lot of gray on his face, and big body.
Yep.
So
Huge track. We
Big
actually
hoof
saw
on.
what we believe was his track in that cornfield near where he was bedding, and it's a substantial track. And then you look at his hoof in person too. I mean, it's almost as long as our hands.
yeah.
It's a big one.
So now I guess that leaves me. I'm gonna be filming now until we head up north, up into our camp, which you guys have probably seen earlier in this video. That leaves me hunting up there with the rifle, and I'm gonna go film the boys bow hunting the rest of the season. So
Not to cut you off here, but I jumped another big buck on a separate property close by to where Bailey killed his today, and I think this afternoon we're probably going to go in and try to kill him. I know exactly the general area where he's bedding, and I'd have to assume he's probably going to be in the same bed that I kicked him up in. I don't know exactly how big he is, but I believe he's one of the 8s or 10 points I had on camera from earlier in the season. So we'll see what happens.
So that's going to do it, folks, and we will hopefully put another one on the ground tonight. We're going to try. So like always, like and subscribe to this video, and hopefully we get some more bucks on the ground for you guys.